Hey everyone, we have a very special episode today. I have a guest. He's called JT, and he's not selling any of his ordinals, and he's gonna tell us why. Hey JT, welcome.
Thanks for having me on the show. Yeah. Um,
You, you wanna tell people what you do first, and then we can go on your black magic that you do.
yeah. So I am a trader. I've been a Bitcoin trader and a bit of a crypto trader for 5 years now. And yeah, primarily, the traditional sense on a centralized exchange, a little bit of DeFi in the previous cycle with Ethereum, just a different way to trade. And I've recently gotten extremely bullish on ordinals. I've done a lot of mints and token acquisitions through inscribing, and my specialty in the technical realm is macro price cycles. So while everybody's taking profits on their ordinals and they ask me what I'm doing with mine, my answer is always the same. I'm doing nothing yet. We're in a bull market. So I can dive into a little bit of my method if you would like.
Yeah, very interesting because I personally also for my sanity I try to take profits every step of the way or every level once I reach some targets. But you're like really have hands of steel, diamond handing all this, and I do believe you will be right at the end. We'll have a massive bull run, but I really want to see it like the philosophy behind the way you hold and trade stuff. So let's
Yeah.
jump into this.
Yes. So the whole ordinal space is on the back of Bitcoin. Like all bull markets, Bitcoin is kind of, the main attraction that kind of dictates the full price cycle. We do have typically 4-year price cycles in crypto, and I trade with a method called the WOFF method. And this is a very old method. This was in the early 1920s at the original kind of stock market boom. There was this analyst named Richard D. Wyckoff, and he developed a method for the selection and execution of trades. So he had a method for which stocks to choose, when to buy them, and when to sell them. And his approach was very macro. It was the entire price cycle. It was the accumulation lows to the highs. He developed this method, which I follow. And he has this concept that I want to share because we hear these types of things all the time. You hear about, oh, the market manipulator, or this guy's doing this, and we always are at odds with the market, or at least a lot of new traders. They're always like, so and so did this, so and so did that. And Richard D. Wyckoff has this beautiful quote that I'll read: "All the fluctuations in the market and in all the various stocks should be studied as if they were the result of one man's operations. Let's call him the composite man, who in theory sits behind the scenes and manipulates the stocks to your disadvantage if you do not understand the game as he plays it, and to your great profit if you understand it." And this is a really key part of the Wyckoff method, is this concept that it is this market manipulator, this composite man, which just means the collective consciousness of the market, the human emotion of the market, and you. And, if you play into the emotions and you do what most of the people do, if you do what the herd does, you're going to get wrecked. But if you know how to play the game as the composite operator plays it, you're going to do good profit. And it really all boils down to supply and demand, and how supply and demand in the market affects price. So Wyckoff at its purest form is just identifying when the supply is captured by smart money. There's two categories: smart money and dumb money. These aren't my terms, but this is what's commonly known in the markets as smart money and dumb money. Smart money in the context of Bitcoin is going to be your hardcore Bitcoiners. That's smart money. Those are the guys that are chewing up the supply. Doesn't matter how bad the bear market gets, they're not selling, they keep buying. They are accumulating the supply. eventually the negative sentiment around Bitcoin begins to flip to positive, like an ETF or some other, bullish narrative begins to develop, and the supply has already been eaten up, and it's not going anywhere. They're not selling. They're dedicated, hard, diamond-handed individuals. So as they keep accumulating the asset, and the demand begins to pick up, there is no Bitcoin to buy. And that is actually how price moves. A lot of people think that price is money in equals price go up, but it's not. It's an agreement between two people. And the exchanges are just a very efficient way of getting lots of agreements done quickly. So Bitcoin is worth as much as somebody is willing to pay for it. And when there's not a lot of Bitcoin to go around, the price has to go up because it's worth what somebody's willing to pay, or it's worth what somebody's willing to sell as well. So if, we're in a bull market, people have the sentiment, I'm not selling my Bitcoin. We're in a bull market. We're going to keep going. I'm not selling my Bitcoin till this, that, and the other happens. I'm not selling my Bitcoin till I can afford a house. I'm not selling my Bitcoin till I can do this or that. So the supply shock is really what happens here. And we break this down in a Wyckoff way with the accumulation zone, which is down here, which is typically when Bitcoin trades sideways. I'll actually pull up a Bitcoin chart real quick here. So the accumulation zone is basically the point at which we stop falling and start trading sideways. So you have the downtrend. Then you have the accumulation. We'll make that yellow. And then you have the uptrend. And the accumulation is when the supply shock happens. The uptrend happens because there's no Bitcoin. That's why it happens. And the inverse happens when the whales start to sell, when the composite operator, when the market manipulator begins to sell. There's so much Bitcoin in the market that it's a flood of supply, and there's no way to go but down, because there's such an abundance of supply. It's very easy to buy Bitcoin. It's very easy to sell Bitcoin. It's a very liquid time in the market that you have price decline. Supply is greater than demand. So it's a very interesting method. It took me a while to learn, but it's helped me give a lot of conviction to these very speculative plays like Ordinals, because I have the confidence that the bull market is going to continue. You have any questions?
So you're telling me
keep
that
going?
you're telling me that Ordinals are not a real asset class, just speculation and pure gamble? I don't believe you.
I think that it's the whole market moves. It's a very correlated market. We saw that last cycle. We saw that the cycle before. When Bitcoin does well, everything does well. A rising tide raises all ships. This market doesn't have the same amount of intrinsic value as a stock market would, where there's a much more dynamic marketplace. It's a very speculative market. A lot of people are here just to speculate on a number go up. So it's very correlated. But
so how can go on.
No.
So how can you apply this strategy to Ordinals, JPEGs, or tokens? It doesn't really matter.
Yes. So the strategy really doesn't apply to Ordinals specifically, other than the fact that the crypto market is highly correlated. So if you're in quality, and that's a very important factor about the Wyckoff method as well, is you don't pick any stock. I could talk about Wyckoff for hours, so I'm going to do a very high level thing about Wyckoff. But one of the rules of Wyckoff is that you only pick assets that are market leaders, that are truly strong and outperforming the market index. You can look at Bitcoin as the market index. So a lot of these ordinal projects, Bitcoin Frogs, Bitmaps, Track, a lot of these projects are definitely making people more Bitcoin. They're outperforming the market index, and those are where the strength lies. So as long as you have exposure to quality projects, and as long as the bull market continues, we're going to have, higher prices. Not financial advice, but this is typically how it goes. And there are different things that you can look at. You can break down kind of these trading ranges, but ultimately you're just trying to identify when a trend has changed. And we have this area where we've come in from the bear market. We start to trade sideways. I can apply this to Bitcoin as well. And then you have a trend change to the upside. And the trend is your friend until it ends. We have no signs of slowing down. We have no signs of stopping from a technical point of view. And then you have the fundamentals as well. We just got an ETF approval. We are pre-halving. We are pre-all-time high break. There's a lot of fundamental factors that go into the fact that this bull market really hasn't reached the mania acceleration phase. People aren't, you get a little bit of DMs now, but it's not like when we're in a mania when everybody and, grandma wants some sats and all of that stuff hasn't happened yet. So,
absolutely.
Yeah, the composite operator is holding.
So, I also have the similar logic that, number go up in the next year or two. That's what I'm personally betting. I'm not telling anyone to bet on this, but it's interesting. Like, if you don't have any exposure to crypto, or you do have a little bit, but now you see it everywhere around the news, and you felt like, okay, I didn't buy back then, maybe I should enter, maybe you get some FOMO. What would you say for people in this type of situation would be best to do now?
From a Wyckoff point of view, now is a very critical time because we're at the upper end of what is considered low risk. So, if you were looking at this trend down here, if you were buying Bitcoin anywhere in this sideways environment, and I'll go over to the actual Bitcoin chart here and kind of, let's actually just get a fresh chart. I'll go to the Bitstamp chart. So if you bought at any point during kind of this change of character, actually turn on the line chart. It's a little bit nicer to look at. You can see the point at which we changed direction, right? This is kind of the pivot where we went from down to sideways. So that's where you're going to draw kind of your trading range, where you have the lows of the range and the upper end of the range. Anywhere inside of this green box, you're laughing. If you were buying Bitcoin in this green box, I know some people are going to watch this and they didn't, but that's not, we'll get to you. But if you were buying Bitcoin at any price between 15,000 between 15,000 and 30,000, you're laughing. You're going to have a very good cycle, in my opinion. Yeah. When you first leave, there's a period called the sign of strength and the backup phase. And we'll go back over here. I wonder if I have a more detailed, no. Okay. I don't know if you can see that. But right here, this second box, this is when you're leaving the sideways trading environment. You have this first signal known as the SOS. This is your sign of strength.
So technically you're saying right now we are in that zone.
Blue box. Yeah, we're in this blue box. This is the confirmation of a trend change. This is when you head into the fastest part of price expansion. So you have the SOS right here, and then you have what's called a backup phase, which I think we're getting close to beginning. We're going to have this period of accumulation. We've been going up for a long time, and I think the ETF, we might see a few more days of green. We might not. We could have the ETF kind of start a boring period in the market, and that's going to be this backup phase. from a Wyckoff point of view, the backup phase is your last chance to get in. This is right before price acceleration starts. This is right before the most exciting time in the market happens, where you have this large expanse up into the point at which we finally get a distribution. But that hasn't happened yet. So, where we are right now, we could start a period of accumulation. Let's say we do top out here. There will be a period of accumulation, and that's what's called our backup phase. Let's label that.
So definitely people need to start paying attention.
You have to
Although
pay attention.
kind of the ETF news was considered like that this massive event that everybody's looking for and waiting for, now is actually even more important to pay attention what happens after that.
Yes. I think that the ETF is going to kind of be a sell the news event, just because of, the fact that we've done 250% on this rally almost. If we hit my target, I do think we go up a little bit more, but we're concluding a little bit of a strength move, and we're going to go into a backup phase, I believe. And this is the last chance from a Wyckoff point of view. There are other methods that you can employ. People show up to the bull market at all different times, and there are different TA-based strategies that you can take. But from a risk perspective, purely from a risk perspective, this is the last low-risk trading entry opportunity that you're going to have. It's the last one before everything becomes very risky, and you need to be a good trader to manage your positions appropriately. You can make a lot of mistakes if you have accumulated anywhere here, or if you're going to accumulate anywhere here. You can make a lot of mistakes. Once you leave this box, you can't make mistakes anymore. If you're entering fresh, if you're new money coming in, you can't make mistakes. But it's very interesting too, because a period of accumulation going into the fundamentals of the halving is almost funny. It's crazy how closely price will match these fundamental events. The sign of strength on the news of the ETF, a period of accumulation going into the halving, the supply shock the halving takes, causing a bull market, breaking past the all-time high, feeding into the bull market. I just think, from a cycle perspective, in my opinion, we're very early. And because we're very early, I have no interest at all to sell any ordinals before the halving and before an all-time high break.
What are your highest conviction plays in the ordinal space? Right.
My highest conviction play, without a doubt, is bitmaps. I think bitmaps are very unique. Bitmaps are something that we have not seen in previous cycles. Ethereum had a lot of PFPs. I think PFPs are going to do well because people understand them and they get them. But I think the fundamentals of bitmaps are very unique, and they're very Bitcoin. We have to get creative with programmability on the Bitcoin network because it wasn't built for programmability. And I think we're going to see a lot of really cool stuff for bitmaps. So that is definitely my highest convicted play, which also happens to be one of the earliest plays in the ordinal space. When these things come from nothing and nobody cares about them, it's often the best time to take a position. And making note of how those plays were accumulated will give you your blue chips. Nobody cared about, bitmaps when they first came out. When Bitcoin frogs first came out, I'm sure they did nothing for a long time. Yeah. When nobody cares, that's when you get a really good distribution, and the composite operator owns the supply. And if you have a high convicted cohort of the market that controls most of the supply, it just marks it up because there's nothing available. Nobody can have access to these assets because you have a high convicted community that's holding them.
It's very interesting that you say this, especially the Mr. Market analogy, because I've been also trading for like 5-6 years already, and definitely at times when I felt like I don't have an edge on the market for one reason or another, I felt like this. I felt like somebody is trading against me. But once you find your niche, and obviously from my experience, you never always have an edge. You have your edge in little pockets of opportunities, like for example bitmaps in this case getting early, or maybe you find a really nice token on the normal crypto side early. And I think this is when it kind of everything starts to click, and you start understanding and seeing these patterns.
Yeah.
I know you and me were early into track, and
Hmm.
although at the moment it didn't feel like a good buy for a reason or another, we had this long-term view of what it could become and what the potential holds. And keep looking at some key metrics of judging, is this overheated or not. We were able to capitalize at this opportunity, and I think there will be plenty more opportunities.
Yeah.
As you said, probably the place for errors is much lower now, but definitely the opportunities will be there.
I think this little, if price plays out like I have it labeled here, if price plays out in this little reaccumulation, I think, because I've seen it a million times, these critical points in the Wyckoff schematic, these critical points in the Wyckoff structure are where things happen. So if we're going to get an automated market maker, I think it's going to happen here. If we're going to get some really bullish fundamentals for DeFi on Bitcoin, I think it's going to happen here. And it's just going to feed into the narrative that, this stuff is valuable and it's not available. Nobody can get it. It's the supply shock. The conviction is so high that nobody can actually buy that. And when nobody can get access to something that they want really badly, they have to pay more for it. And I see this period here pre-halving, we start to see the DEXs and we start to see some of the real key fundamental plays come into the market. So there's certainly opportunities. There was opportunities down here. This is when bitmaps and Bitcoin frogs and Taproot wizards and all that stuff happened. But we don't have a complete marketplace from a Bitcoin DeFi point of view. And those are going to be discovered here. So pre-halving, around the halving, that's when things are really going to get interesting. There's certainly opportunities out there if you're just starting to pay attention to the space now.
Yeah, it kind of looks like black magic, but if you've been doing the work, or if you're just brand new, if you start getting into the space, but really start into it, not like me when I was a beginner, you just here and there, here's something, you buy this token because somebody said so. The opportunities definitely are there to grab. And I think that for me personally, the two most bullish things on this cycle in general and on the Ordinal space more specifically is that, first of all, we have a Bitcoin driven narrative. It's not an
Yeah.
altcoin, it's the ETF, it's the boomer money coming in. It's huge.
Yeah.
This itself, it's huge. And the fact that there is so much people holding and big whales holding Bitcoin, but they're not doing anything with it. And now they can start actually doing something, either, buying JPEGs or, tokens that you can buy with Bitcoin. That would unlock a lot of liquidity if we get, obviously, as you say, the DEXs and the infrastructure. There's a lot of side money that people haven't touched. A lot of people, like 99% of even normal crypto people, don't know about Ordinals and
Yeah.
haven't played around with them. And I every day get requests about, hey, how do I do this and that and that. I'm trying to orange pill more and more people, but I think, as you said, all these factors are kind of making this perfect storm that we obviously all hope it plays out, because it might not play out, but this is kind of what we're seeing in the coming months and years, I would say.
Yeah. And I'm going to piggyback on that comment and make it even more bullish
Not that we
because
need it.
not that we need it, but this market cycle is fundamentally incredibly different. I know those are the four most dangerous words in the market. This time is different, but there are some pretty interesting fundamentals that are happening that are specific to this cycle. First and foremost, this is the first cycle where the supply of Bitcoin on exchanges available to trade is in a decline. This is the first time, and you can. I'm sorry I don't have any on-chain metrics up to show you, but you can go to Glassnode and you can see that the available supply of Bitcoin has been in a downtrend since the top of the previous cycle. This is the first time ever that is in a decline. Supply is in a decline. Secondly, we have a Bitcoin driven narrative and we have a Bitcoin driven market. In previous cycles, the whole market's correlated. Bitcoin went up, everything went up, but where all the action was on Ethereum or Solana. There was a lot of action on Ethereum and Solana. So if you wanted to buy an NFT, what did you need to buy? You needed to buy Ethereum. If you wanted to buy a Solana NFT or get into a Solana project, what did you need to buy? You needed to buy Solana. With a Bitcoin driven narrative, what do you need to buy to get exposure to these new and exciting things? You need Bitcoin. That's going to put an incredible amount of demand pressure on the order books in the context of a declining supply. It's huge. It's going to be a huge factor. And then the final factor as well is as the market continues and as Bitcoin DeFi continues, Ordinals are almost burning the supply. When you apply 546 sats to an ordinal inscription, that inscription is worth more than 546 sats. In your mind, it's being assigned a new value. It's worth more than 546 sats. So if we're not assigning the market price of those sats, every single time an ordinal is created, we are burning Bitcoin. Not in reality of the token supply, but in the sentiment and in the supply shock context, those sats are gone. They only exist attached to that ordinal, which has a different price. I'm going to go out and say that my targets for this cycle are anywhere from $400,000 to $1 million by 2025. This is going to be a crazy cycle that is going to really take a lot of people off guard. People are going to be confused. They are going to be FOMOing in hard, and the fundamentals of the supply decreasing and the demand going to on-chain Bitcoin are going to be huge contributors to why I think those prices are achievable.
That's insane. I'm not even that bullish, honestly, but I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't mind Bitcoin.
I wouldn't mind either.
I'm not sure if I will have the balls to hold it until there, but let's see. I'm up for a challenge, honestly.
Yeah.
Well, JT, thank you. I think we had a great conversation, and I know you have some great products. And tell people what you have and how they can find you.
Yeah. So we have a trading bot called Blackbox. We've been teaching this method of trading for a long time, and what we've noticed is people don't always follow the strategy because it's such a macro strategy, and people, they want action. So we created Blackbox to kind of capture everything that we've learned and everything that we've applied to the markets from a cycle point of view, and we have an algorithm that will trade the cycles. So this is free to use. All that we ask is you use one of our affiliate links when you're signing up, but it's 100% free to use. And it has a very good track record. Past performance doesn't indicate future results, but this bot has been making us, this strategy has been making us a lot of money for a long time. And it is a solid strategy that basically buys the bottom and sells the tops. I know it sounds ridiculous, but it's not going to get the bottom and it's not going to get the tippy top, but it captures all the meat in the middle. And I want you guys to come and check it out. And if you have more questions, just click the join community tab. We're always in there. We're always in the Discord. Come in, ask questions, hang out, talk about ordinals. Just kick it.
Cool. All the links will be down in the description to get in touch with JT. And thank you very much for this conversation. I didn't really need to be more bullish, but I guess now I am.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to be surprised. This whole narrative of diminishing returns is done this cycle.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Thank you. And guys, we'll see you in the next video. Bye.